Hey Steelers fans, I'm Thomas Mott. Welcome into our Pittsburgh Steelers video where I'm going to give you guys 5 options to replace wide receiver James Washington if, or more like when, the Pittsburgh Steelers go ahead and trade him. Now, I'm not going to sit here and give you, big name guys that they could trade for. These are all free agents who they can go out and sign right now. So don't expect any crazy names, but there'll be some surprise names on this list that you would not have expected could be an option if and when they trade James Washington. And let's be honest, they are going to trade James Washington. I'll be shocked if Washington is on this roster for the start of week 1. If he is, that means they've mended a relationship, but that seems to be broken right now, and I think trading him is the best bet. So let's start with number 1. Again, no particular order here. We'll start with the outside candidate who hasn't played a lot. Let's go with Josh Doctson, right? Remember Josh Doctson? He was a high draft pick a couple of years ago and really was a pretty decent player before not only struggling 2 years ago and then sitting out due to COVID in 2020. He actually went to Africa and did a bunch of mission work or whatever it was for low income and impoverished people over there. So kind of cool for Doctson, but he did miss last season, so that's hurted his chances of coming onto a roster. Well, before we even just mention Doctson, let's throw up the Steelers wide receiver depth chart, okay? Let's just be honest about this. I'm not saying they have to sign somebody if they let go of James Washington because, as you know, the wide receiver depth chart is very deep. If they let go of James Washington, this wide receiver depth chart is fine. Deontay Johnson is expected to be really get a lot more snaps than Washington, who was already complaining about that before the start of the season. So now we're here with him complaining about that even more. But just because I'm giving a list of the top 5 players they could sign doesn't mean they have to go out and sign any of these because, as we know, I just want to acknowledge the Steelers wide receiver depth chart is already pretty darn good to go. Back to Doctson, though. Not only did he flash the first-round talent just a couple of years back, but he is fresh. And so even though the knock on him is that he did not play last year and that when he did play a couple of years ago, he wasn't necessarily that great, if you want to try and get the most out of somebody, if you want to bring back the former glory, Doctson would be a very good and extremely cheap option for the Pittsburgh Steelers, probably the cheapest out of anybody on this list. As I said, the Steelers don't need another wide receiver. Just because they get rid of James Washington does not mean they have to immediately go out in panic mode and sign somebody. I trust Juju, I trust Chase Claypool, and I think, like you, Deontay Johnson's going to have a very good overall NFL season. But if they want to bring in an extra body, we'll start with my list of 5 and say that Josh Doctson would be a very viable option, a free agent who would be super cheap. Just throw him right into the Washington or the wide receiver lineup. And let's go to number 2 here. This will be a cheaper veteran. Again, the first 2 aren't necessarily sexy. The next 3 after this are pretty crazy, so stay tuned for that. Golden Tate. Now, Golden Tate has been a savvy veteran who not only was really good with the Detroit Lions and then had a decent year with Philadelphia, and then last year spent his time with the New York Giants. Still unsigned, obviously due to his age, but the production compared to some other guys in this list wasn't bad. In 2020, in 12 games played with the New York Giants, he had 52 targets, 35 catches, 388 yards, and 2 touchdowns. That's right about the number you'd expect from a number 4 or number 5 wide receiver, very similar to what James Washington has done during his career with the Steelers. Washington's had a couple more touchdowns, obviously more yards than 388, but he still is a comparable, I think, player in a very similar position as well, because you can move Golden Tate inside and outside. He's one of those flexible, more of a slot wide receiver, but can also play on the outside. Tate, again, age is an issue for him, and obviously production, as most of the guys on this list are an issue right now. But if you needed to go ahead and bring in a replacement, Golden Tate would make a lot of sense, and I think they could go ahead and 100% bring him in. Now, let me ask you guys this. I mentioned earlier, they don't technically need another wide receiver, but let's say they do trade James Washington, which I'm banking that they will, hence the video. Do you think the Steelers need another wide receiver? Assuming that James Washington is traded, are you fine with what they have? Or do you think they should go out and trade for a wide receiver? You think they should trade for one? Type Y down below for yes. You think they should not trade for one? Are you very comfortable with the guy that they have? You love Deontay Johnson, whatever it is. Go ahead and type N down below for no. But I want your thoughts on that. Do they actually need another wide receiver? Let me know what you guys think down below right now in the comments section. All right, so now let's get a little bit, not crazy, because these are all players that you can sign, but let's go outside the box right now. Doctson and Golden Tate made sense. How about Dez Bryant? Remember Dez Bryant? Now, I immediately think of Dez Bryant. I think of a guy who's 50 years old. He's way too old to be a wide receiver in the National Football League. But if you follow Dez Bryant on Twitter, he still wants to make a return and come back to the National Football League after a very limited 6 games with the Baltimore Ravens in the 2020 season. I think Dez can still play. I'm not saying he's going to be anything as special at all. I'd rather keep James Washingon than sign Dez Bryant. But, desperate times call for desperate measures. If Mike Tomlin and Big Ben think they can squeeze a little bit extra out of Dez Bryant, then, go ahead. Why not? 11 targets, 6 catches, 47 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Not anything to write home about. Again, if I'm signing Dez Bryant, it is for the absolute veteran minimum. This is not a guy who's going to roll in here and give you a lot of snaps or give you a lot of production, but he's a wise, wide receiver, a veteran presence inside a locker room that has young guys. Juju, Chase, Deontay Johnson, they're all very young. I mean, who's the oldest wide receiver on this roster? Dez would be it by like 14 years or something crazy like that. So not only do you get a wise sage at the wide receiver spot, you get somebody who, in very limited snaps, could give you a nice, decent red zone target to go ahead and throw jump balls to, or just, catch you a possession whenever you needed it with an over-the-top catch. I think Bryant could be another option that, again, I'm not necessarily saying would be a better upgrade over James Washingon, but they need a body to go ahead and roll in there. Bryant is preparing to go ahead and try and play this season. Much like the odds of him being signed anytime soon are unlikely, but I think if Pittsburgh doesn't sign him, a team eventually during the season might need him, especially if there is an injury. Before we keep going, a lot of you guys are subscribing to this channel. A ton of you guys are subscribing, and I want to give you guys credit where credit is due. So if you are subscribed to the channel, go down below and type me in the comment section, just so I can go through, and I'll try and like as many as I can as well. If you are subscribed, go down below and comment me down below in the comment section. I want to see how many subscribers are watching and kind of gauge how much of you are not subscribed, how many of you guys are subscribed. So go down below and hit that sub button first off, and then type me down below in the comment section. That way I know that you are officially subscribed and a part of the channel. Okay, most bizarre player on this list. You ready? It's Larry Fitzgerald. And you go, Thomas, I didn't even realize Larry Fitzgerald was a free agent. Honestly, I didn't either. Until like 48 hours ago, I was doing research for this video, and I went, oh yeah, Larry Fitzgerald technically has not retired and has not also gone back to the Arizona Cardinals, which is where you'd expect him to go back because he's been basically the Cardinals for life. So he's out there. And there have been reports that New England could look to go ahead and sign him, and Philadelphia needs a wide receiver. Maybe they go ahead and sign him, and now Pittsburgh can go ahead and be thrown into that mix because, again, a veteran presence who would be a bigger upgrade over Dez Bryant, but still gives you that kind of old sage wide receiver advice who, like I said, could be productive. Compared to Dez last year, Fitz played in 12 games, had 72 targets, 54 catches, almost 500 yards, and a touchdown. I mean, the touchdowns came down because, of course, DeAndre Hopkins is over there and Christian Kirk is over there, and Arizona has plenty of weapons. They don't necessarily need Larry Fitzgerald, but he has retired, which is kind of strange to me. I think he's waiting for a team that wants to win, or at least a team that is going to win that he wants to go ahead and play for, and he'll sign for them maybe by the end of preseason, start of week 1. Well, guess what? You want to come play for a winner? How about the Pittsburgh Steelers, Larry? I mean, come on. I mean, the roster is pretty much built to win football games this year. If you trust Big Ben, remember him? He beat you in that, Super Bowl a couple of years back. More than that. I mean, that was the Santonio Holmes catch. That was a long time ago. Come on down to Pittsburgh. I honestly would love, out of all the 5 I'm going to give you today, for Larry Fitzgerald to become a Pittsburgh Steeler because it would be fun, and I think it would give him a very good chance in his final season to make a deep playoff run, something he's not done since his late Super Bowl run. I mean, honestly, Arizona's been pretty trash. So recently, when they got Kyler Murray, they've gotten better, but I do think Fitz could make a lot of sense from a Pittsburgh Steelers standpoint. Likelihood of it happening, very slim, probably not going to happen, but he is technically a free agent out there, so we got to throw him here onto our list of 5 players. Okay, final player on the list is someone I'm surprised is not signed yet. I mean, he is kind of old, but Alshon Jeffery was a productive receiver for Philadelphia the past couple of years. Prior to that, he was a Chicago Bear and gives you that big catch radius jump ball target who, again, is old. And we got to be honestly, he is an old player, but still could go ahead and roll in and give you something special. He's been injured the past couple of seasons. Last time he was healthy was really 2018. Only played in 13 games, but in 13 games, he had 92 targets, 65 catches, or 843 yards and 6 touchdowns. Now, again, that was 2018. That was a long time ago. He's been injured, especially in 2020. He hardly played. He had 6 total catches with Philadelphia, so I understand why the Eagles got rid of him. He's making a lot of money, too, so you could sign him for the veteran minimum because he's already being paid by Philadelphia. It's just essentially how it works. And bring in another 1 veteran receiver, 2 cheap receiver, and 3 receiver who could go ahead and give you that jump ball or possession catch. And if he can stay healthy, it could be a lot better than even anyone else on this list. I think Jeffery recently has been the best receiver out of this list, maybe besides Larry Fitzgerald. But again, Jeffery's problem is, of course, staying healthy. Again, this list is if you need to sign somebody after trading James Washingon. If they trade James Washingon, will they sign somebody? Who knows? But these are the best 5 available, in my opinion, that would not take a trade to go ahead and add and move over here to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Okay. Out of the 5, Doctson, Tate, Bryant, Fitzgerald, and Jeffery, pick one. If you had to pick one, I know it's not great, but if you had to pick one right now to sign, which wide receiver would you do? I would do Larry Fitzgerald. I think most of us would, but besides Fitzgerald, I'd look at Doctson or Alshon Jeffery, honestly. I think those 2 would be my top pick here if Fitzy wants to go back to be a Cardinal. But give me your pick for the wide receivers down below in the comment section. All right, ultimate for today here on our Pittsburgh Steelers video where we jumped into 5 options in case they were to trade James Washingon. I'm hoping James Washingon stays. I hope that they can mend that relationship, but the odds of that happening don't seem that great. So here's your list in case he is traded. Again, if he is traded or anything big happens, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. We'll have you guys covered on the latest Pittsburgh Steelers news and rumors. We have a mailbag video coming out next couple of days, so use the hashtag Steelers to ask any sort of mailbag question if you have those down below in the comment section as well. All time for today here on our Pittsburgh Steelers news and rumor video. I am your host, Thomas Mott. Thanks for watching. Stay safe out there. Enjoy the rest of your day.